How you doing?
Hello.
How
I'm
are you
good.
feeling today? You're good?
I'm good. How are you?
I am very well. I am very
Good.
well. Where I'm getting to the point in May, because for me, my months for June and July are much slower as far as traveling
Yeah.
to events and stuff. So we have a couple weeks left in May, and I have a few more events that I'm excited to go serve at. And then I'm going to go to Michigan for a couple weeks in June and spend time on the lake with my kids and just take a little summer vacay.
Yeah. That's going to be so nice.
It's going to be so nice because, we have been running
Yeah.
like crazy lately.
Yes.
You know what I wanted to do though? I wanted to take a moment and I did not prepare you for this.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But it was
Okay.
just Mother's Day.
It
It was just
was.
Mother's Day, and I wanted to give you a chance to say something super sweet or loving or affirming to your mother, who, by the
Oh.
way, has been a wonderful support of this ministry.
Oh.
So, Haley, what are you going to say to mom?
Oh, that's so sweet. I would say my mom has been one of the most encouraging people in my life. She is so uplifting. Like, truly, she is one of the best moms. And I know a lot of people say that, but she really is. And she has supported me through every single decision I've made in my life. She has walked with me hand in hand through everything. Um, and I just love her so much. She's the best.
Yeah, I wanted to give you a moment to say something to your mommy. I was thinking, just in honor of Mother's Day, I was just thinking about my mom and um it's just so funny because for me, I don't know what this was like for you. And we're going to do a episode later. Remind me what month we're doing parents. Aren't we doing parenting at some point?
August. Yeah.
Okay, in August we'll talk about
Yeah.
parenting, so we'll come back to this, but my mom did not become my friend until it was
Mm,
college. And I remember like
yeah.
all of a sudden this shift. And some kids like I knew I had friends who were like friends with their parents, but my
Yeah.
mom and I's relationship wasn't like that. It was very mother-daughter,
Yeah.
middle school and high school. And then all of a sudden, I just remember going to college like my freshman year, and she showed me this entirely new side to her. And I saw her as a person and not
Hmm.
just my parent or not just my mom. Like she became and I just remember being like struck or stunned and being like, oh my goodness, my mom is funny or my mom is fun. Like, cause she just, I don't know, she's older, but like when growing up, I didn't
Yeah.
see that side of her. So anyway, I just wanted
Right.
to say to happy Mother's Day to, my absolute best friend, Vicky Thompson. Love you so much. Thank you so much for holding it down all of my life as both mother and friend. Haley, what are we talking about today?
So today we are talking about anxiety. The topic of
Mm,
anxiety is ruining my life.
mm, yeah. And I wanted to like lean on you. When we do
Yeah.
submissions, I wanted to lean on you and hope you'll feel comfortable sharing some of
Yeah.
your stories
Yeah.
with anxiety. What does that mean to you? Like, even just having this topic, what comes up in your mind?
Yeah. I think it's really cool to get to talk on this topic because I have always said with my life, I will tell of what you have done in my life, Lord. I will tell
Mm,
of how you have delivered me from anxiety.
mm,
Because I really, really struggled. And I prayed for peace and for deliverance. And it didn't happen right away, but I can genuinely say the Lord has delivered me from anxiety, and it has been such a miracle in my own life.
mm. How old were you when you started experiencing it, or even saying, hey, something feels different than what I'm seeing with
Yeah.
my friends?
Yeah, so I was in 8th grade when I started kind of feeling it,
Mm,
and then it really did slowly start, and then as I got into high school, it became much more so, and it was like I was experiencing it daily and, waking up in the morning with it, going to bed with it, and
mhm.
experiencing panic attacks. So it really like ramped up in high school.
Can you share, and we'll talk about this more, friends, when we get to the submissions portion, but just for somebody who's listening and maybe they're
Yeah.
like, what does anxiety feel like? Or they've had no experience with it.
Mm.
Can you just share from your perspective what it feels like? How would you say it impacted a normal day for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, what anxiety felt like was it would be a racing heart.
Mm,
I would there would be times where I would be so anxious that I would physically shake. Like I could not stop shaking. Um, and it's just like this overwhelming sense of like your whole body is going through this like sensory experience where
mm,
it's like something is not right. Um, and so that's how I experienced it and how it affected me daily. I mean, I truly had to lean on the Lord, and I feel so thankful that like it was kind of at that time in my life that I started going to church for myself and taking my faith seriously. Um and I would just like every day I was just like, Lord, please give me peace. Please help me through
yeah.
this. I can't do this. Um and it really was a day by day thing. Like I just had to take it one that's something my mom would always tell me. She would say, just take it one day at a time. And so I would just take it one day at a time and pray to the Lord. Um, and yeah, I had like scripture and songs that would bring me peace, and I would just listen to those or speak those scriptures over myself, and just like truly had to seek the Lord every single day.
Yeah. And I can't remember if we differ on this, but I want to say to anybody listening, my perspective, I think we actually agree, but I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
My husband, who, he has anxiety, he always says Jesus plus prescriptions,
Yes.
right? Like
Yeah. Absolutely.
these are chemical imbalances in the
Yes.
brain. And so, yeah, like just like we would, I think if you have whatever diagnosis, we pray for healing and God be with
Yeah.
me and help me get through this. And also, whatever doctors and modern medicine can help us do to get through those experiences as human beings, we lean on that as well. So I just want to make sure I mention that for anybody
Yeah.
listening, trying to say, what do I do? Man, actually, I'll let Haley answer. What should be the first step? Somebody, if I feel like anxiety is really impacting my daily life,
Yeah.
what would you tell them to do? Therapy first, or go to see a doctor? What would you say?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. First step, I think knowing yourself too is a big part of it, but I would say therapy and medication would be the
Yeah,
first steps. And I did really struggle with going on. I was put on medication and I really struggled with that. Of just like I shouldn't have to do this, and
mm,
yeah, really struggled through that. And I had um a friend really speak into me of like the Lord has given us this modern
right,
like medication, these doctors who can help us, and this is a good
right,
thing.
right.
So yeah, I'm a huge advocate for medication and therapy. I think therapy is so helpful because it really helps you like get to the root of like why am I
Yes.
experiencing this, and what are some practical ways that I can, like, my therapist gave me practical ways of when I'm experiencing anxiety, what can I do to kind of bring myself out of that.
Yes. Oh, I want to talk about that when we get to submissions. And
Yeah.
I also want to say, so my daughter has anxiety
Yeah.
that needs medication.
Yeah.
And it's just so, like, I've had periods of anxiety, but I've never struggled like day to day to day with
Yeah.
anxiety. And so hearing, I just remember her saying to me, Mom, when you drop me off at school, all I do, oh man, it's going to make me want to cry. Um, is like worry about what's happening to you and where are you and are you,
Um,
and I just thought, oh my, I couldn't even fathom that because my brain doesn't do that. And then when I was
yeah.
talking about it with my husband, he was like, oh yeah, like
Yeah.
that, those are his types of experiences
Yeah.
of reoccurring intrusive thoughts. So
Yeah.
so hard, especially when we're kids. And I just,
Yeah.
if you're a parent listening to this, I just encourage you to talk to your children about what they're experiencing, because I just feel so bad for kids that have to go through these types of things alone, or like go
Yeah.
on Google, you know what I mean, because maybe their
Yeah.
parents are saying, oh, just get over it, or you're
Exactly. Yeah.
you're being silly, or I don't know why you're that way. Oh my goodness, can we just listen to our kids? Okay, we're gonna go to submissions, but before we do that, y'all, Haley and I were, a few weeks ago, we were actually, I took Haley to a very fancy restaurant. And if you were
Yep.
born in the Midwest, you know the fancy Italian restaurant that I took her to. You have frequented it yourself, Fazoli's. Now, Haley had never been to a Fazoli, so I was so excited to get to allow her to experience the breadsticks at Fazoli's. But you told me, Haley, a story at Fazoli's, and I said, girl, we have got to put this in the group chat. You guys, you're going to die. You're going to die dead when you hear this story. If you are new here, group chat is where we share a dating story and ask, is this horrible or holy? And send it to the group chat for feedback. Haley, let's get to it.
Yes. Okay. So when I was in college, I had this guy who was pursuing me and he wanted to go on a date. And I was like, great, let's go on a date. But right as I was agreeing to go on this date, COVID hits and it shuts down, everything's shutting down at this point. And so I was in college in Colorado and my family is from California. So I had to be sent back home to California. So I said to this guy, hey, we're going to be gone for like 6 months. Maybe we just, if we're still interested, let's just go on this date when we get back.
The
I was
paths
just kind of
aren't
like,
aligning anymore, my
yes,
friend. The
yes,
paths are not aligning. Okay.
exactly. And this was like, we had like, I think 24 hours to pack up our
Oh,
whole
wow.
entire
Okay.
dorm. Yeah. And he's like, no, I really want to go on this date. And I'm like, okay, well, I have to like pack up my dorm and get on a flight to go
So
home.
actually, pause. So you had 24 hours to get out.
Yeah.
And you said, you know what? I'm going to make time for love. So I am, okay, I'm
Yeah.
here. I am seated, Haley. I appreciate you. I appreciate you being willing to put yourself out there. Okay.
I tried, he was, he just kept saying, I really want to go on this date. And so I said, okay, let's do it,
Okay.
So he's like, he takes me to Olive Garden.
And another
Yes.
first class dining experience. And when I was in high
Exactly.
school, that's how you knew a guy was really into you. Is if he
Is
would
the
take you
Olive
to
Garden?
the Olive Garden. Olive Garden is still, it's my son's. Honestly, it's his place of choice.
Oh, okay.
If we're gonna go out to eat, Hudson will always say, "Can we please go to the Olive Garden?" I'm like, I'm okay. I'm not, just because you and I talked about this. I'm more of a non-chain restaurant
Yes.
person.
Yeah.
If I have a choice, unless it's a
Right.
Cheesecake Factory, I will
That's
look
fair.
you right in the face and tell you I hate chain restaurants, and then walk straight into a Cheesecake Factory. But Olive Garden was like, and that. So did you? When he told you, Haley, when he
Yeah.
told you, I'm gonna take you to the Olive Garden, were you like, wow, okay, this is it? This man is serious about me.
I can't really remember. I think it was such a blur because I was
Okay.
like, I have to get out. I have to go home. The world is shutting down.
Yeah,
I don't know
what is
what's going to
happening?
happen.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I was just like,
So
he
you weren't
wants
that
to go to the
impressed.
Olive
You weren't that
Garden.
impressed.
Yeah.
Okay.
And plus, so like, CCU, it's right down the street. It's like 5
I was just going
minutes.
to say
So it's
that. Yes.
was it just easy? I don't know. I don't know.
It is literally like, yeah, if you could walk
Yeah.
from
yeah.
our campus that we were at.
Yeah. So anyway, he takes me to Olive Garden. We did drive, but he takes me there. Yeah. Driving on this like 2-minute drive.
Yeah.
And the conversation was fine. Like, it was good, but I knew in the date, I was just like, like, I just don't see this going any further.
Okay.
But it comes to the end of the date, and I am someone, I always want to offer to pay. Like, I always want to say, hey, I will pay for my part of the dinner. Like, I never want someone to feel pressure.
Okay.
Now, I mean, bonus points if they do pay, but
Right.
I never want to make them feel pressured. So the check comes, I grab my wallet to offer to pay for part of it, and he goes, "Oh, sweet, thanks." I was like, "Oh, I guess I'm paying for both of us."
So now you took him on a date.
I took him on a date. Exactly. This date that I didn't even really want to go on.
Within 24 hours. Yes.
Yeah.
So friends, is this holy? Or is he just, like a feminist? You know what I mean? And it's like,
Yeah.
girl, I'm going to let you take charge here. Oh, sweet. Awesome. Or is this horrible? Have you ever had friends and experience where maybe you thought somebody was going to pay for you and then you ended up somehow paying for them. Send us your submission story for the group chat. You can email us at whatifimwrongpod@gmail.com. Also, we love voice memo submissions. So send us your story in a voice note and we can play it next week on the group chat. Okay, before we get to submissions, let's do a define the term. Remember, for this segment, I am going to tell you a word and its actual definition. And I want you to ask yourself how knowing the actual definition may change how you see your relationship with that word. Today's word is anxiety. So here is the definition of anxiety, and I found this from Medline Plus. It says this: anxiety is a feeling of fear, dread, and uneasiness. Haley and I were in Mississippi for an event a few weeks ago. And she asked me, because we were talking about this episode, if I've ever dealt with anxiety. And I told her that my therapist was asking me if I felt like I had anxiety one time. And I said, no, I don't think so. And she said, anxiety is just fear. And when she said that, I was like, oh, because at that time in my life, I was consumed by fear. Fear of what God would do, fear of what God wouldn't do, fear of whether I would be enough, fear for my future. Man, I had so much fear. And so I think knowing that definition at that time, it just helped me when I found myself having those fearful thoughts. But it's just so funny because I wasn't even labeling them, Haley, as anxiety.
Mhm.
I just thought, oh, yeah, I'm just afraid of my future. Or I would have probably called it uncertainty. It's just so interesting how
Mm.
language can play a role in you even realizing that you're struggling, or whether or not you even see yourself as somebody who is struggling. But so I started to say out loud, once I got that definition, when I would feel that feeling or that worry, that uncertainty of, oh my goodness, God, are you going to do this? Oh my goodness, God, are you going to show up? Oh my goodness, God, what am I going to do about bills? Right. I
Mhm.
would say out loud, Heather, what are you afraid of? Because for me, fears were often related to things about my future. And I had to remind my brain that I didn't have to worry about 2 months from now yet. There was
Mm.
so much that God could do or change or introduce into my life between that moment and 2 months from now. How had I seen God that day? And I would just literally, I would say things out loud. I would remind my brain of the ways I had seen God that day or the ways I had seen God in the past. I have literally gone on prayer walks when I feel that anxiety or that fear over my future. And I say, okay, Lord, all I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to say all the different ways I have seen you in the last 10 years. And I'll just start
Mm.
speaking them out loud. And then I would feel that anxiety decrease. So I just wanted to say to you, anxiety is normal
Mhm.
and fear is normal because we are human beings. But I highly recommend spending some time in therapy, and your therapist will walk you through whatever strategies they think might be useful for you. But for me, I started to learn how to, what my therapist called, disrupt negative thoughts and answer them, right? Heather, what are you afraid of? And then really analyze, was this something that it was even time for me to be worrying about? And if not, right, how do I? And I started to just say, this is what my therapist taught me, and I'm going to teach it to you right now, friend. She would say, oh, that thought doesn't serve you anymore.
Mm.
And so I would say, brain, thank you for trying to warn me, but that thought doesn't serve me right now. We will revisit it in 2 months. All right, Haley, let's get to submissions. So we aren't going to have a guest today because as I was talking to Haley, I was like, hey, will you take the lead on this one? You're going to obviously share the submission, but then just, walk us through what you've experienced or
Yeah.
maybe what God has done for you or some strategies and resources that you found to be useful. You're comfortable doing that, right, Haley?
Yes, of course.
Okay, let's see. And this was something somebody sent to us a week ago or something, right?
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, let's hear
Yeah.
it.
Okay. As Christians, we are often told that anxiety is akin to a lack of faith and we
Mm,
should pray more. There is so much shame and guilt there. Many years ago, as a poor stay at home mama of toddlers with a traveling husband gone half the week and home very late when he was home, so basically a single mom, Living across the country from my family and struggling with anxiety and some nasty postpartum, I went to the local university's Agora Clinic for help. There, I met and was counseled by a young student working on her doctorate. I was very clear that I was a Christian, and she appropriately so didn't share her beliefs, nor did she cater to mine. She would ask me to take my anxiety to the next step, to walk out all of my biggest fears.
Mm.
Okay, so what if, then what? And what if that, then what? What I realized as a Christian, a daughter, sister, wife, mother, and friend was that every next step after my fear has me ending up in the same place. Come death or destruction, my own or of those I love the most, the landing place is God. With all those that I love, myself, and with my babies who are no longer so, it all ends up okay.
Hmm.
Now, the in between may be horrific and totally scary, but He is there too. In the end, it all turns out okay because in the end, there is God. There is an eternity with Him. So while anxiety isn't completely absent from my life these days, it doesn't scare me so much anymore because I know, despite the potentially horrific middle, the ending is eternally glorious with Him.
Hmm. That is so that just brought me back because
Yeah.
I remember having this moment with my therapist where I was I mean, I was just so worried about my dad's Alzheimer's and
Yeah.
financially how we were going to provide for him. And I just remember her saying, "Okay, so then what? Like,
Yeah.
if he has to go into a nursing home tomorrow, then what?"
Hmm.
And then I started giving solutions. And she was like, "Okay, right? So if he
Yeah.
has to go to a nursing home tomorrow, which right now is like this is what's keeping you up at night and it's making you sick. You just
Yeah.
listed to me three things. They're not ideal,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
it's possible. It
Mm-hmm.
is possible for your family to walk this thing out. And there are other families that have walked something out similar.
Yeah.
And God will be with you. So tell yourself that,
Yeah.
right? Hey, these thoughts don't serve me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Man, hearing
Yeah.
that, okay, then what? I don't know what struck you as you were reading that.
Yeah. So I think Christians don't know how to handle anxiety
Mm,
because the Bible says not to worry. And we
yeah,
have these people living in anxiety and they don't understand the difference between worrying and living with a mental health condition.
right.
However, that doesn't mean that we should ignore or dismiss what scripture says.
Sure.
When Jesus says, "Don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself," he's inviting us to rest in him.
Mm,
But I know that people use this verse to try and dismiss anxiety, and that
yeah,
can unintentionally cause shame and guilt to those who are struggling.
yeah.
But I want you to know that shame and guilt does not come from God. That is from the
Mm,
enemy. And I
mm,
have heard this so much. That people who struggle with anxiety, oh, everyone is telling me just don't worry. And
yeah,
that brings unintentionally. It's not these people aren't trying to bring shame to your life, but people
right.
don't understand and so they're saying, "Oh, but the Bible says don't worry." And I think people need to know shame and guilt does not come from God. And I think that's what struck me the most about this is her saying that that is what she felt.
Yes, that is so good. And also, I'm going to talk about this when we do our day in the Bible. But
Mm,
I think what the Bible, when it says be unafraid, it's not that God is saying, don't be afraid. It's
yeah.
that he's saying, like, hey, I recognize that you are afraid and I'm inviting you to step into this anyway, step
Yeah.
forward anyway. Kind of like the therapist said to that lady in our submission,
Mhm.
okay, then what? What's
Yeah.
next? You're afraid. You're a
Yeah.
human. That makes sense. But
Yeah.
what are you going to do in response to what you feel? And I think that
Yeah.
that's really helpful. It doesn't have to stop with the worry, it can invite us into doing something next.
Yeah. My therapist told me list 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can touch, and 1 thing you're thankful for. And this
Mm,
technique has been life changing for me because when
yeah.
I'm in that anxiety, it just I don't know how, but it just brings me out of it,
Well,
and I'll
it's your
just sit there.
brain. It's
Yeah,
moving your
exactly.
brain out of emotional, irrational
Yes.
thought and into conscious awareness.
Yes.
That makes total
Exactly. Yeah.
sense.
So that has been, like, so helpful for me.
I think it's really helpful too what you just said about something you're grateful for, because I remember reading this study that said stress. Now, this wasn't anxiety, it was stress, but
Mm.
stress and gratitude cannot live in the brain at the same time.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
I do that a lot. I will start my day
Yeah.
because I'm a big believer in like you know how I am with communication and words, but
Yeah.
we tell our brains what to look for that day.
Mhm.
And so I did it this morning to Seth when we were having our coffee. I said, "Okay, what are 3 things you're happy about today or you're grateful for that happened yesterday?" Because I want our brains to look for the
Yeah.
good things in life rather than immediately wake up and say, "I slept horrible and this
Yeah.
isn't working and oh my goodness, can you believe, let's scroll the news and see all the horrible things happening." No, I want to tell my brain things that I'm grateful for because then I know stress can't live at the same time. All right, what's the next
Yeah.
submission?
Yeah. So the next one says, "What do I do when I'm waking up in the morning already filled with anxiety? How do you help with that?"
Yeah. So for me, and this is what I want to talk about because my therapist was giving me some strategies. What did she call it? Self care, right? And
Mm.
I was like, she was like, "What are you doing for self care?" This is so funny
Yeah.
because I was like, "Oh, like I'll watch an entire season. I'll binge watch a season of Survivor." And she was like, "Oh, okay." She was like, "So how do you feel after you binge watch an
Yeah.
entire season of Survivor?" I'm like, "I feel horrible, right? Like
Yeah.
I feel like I just wasted my day." She's like, "So that's not self care.
Yeah.
Self care is things that we do and we feel better after
Mhm.
having done them. So maybe watching one episode or two episodes of Survivor, afterwards you're like, okay, I feel better. I'm going to go for a walk now. Right. Like, so then I started saying, oh, so I don't at this point in my life, and now I do, but at that point, I didn't love running. But I
Yeah.
would get up and go on a run because I knew if I
Mm.
did, that was a self care act that would make me feel better. Going to my visit my grandma in the nursing home, there were so many days I did not want to go just because I had so many other things to do. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
to take an hour out of my day and go sit. But then I thought, you know what? There has never been a time that I leave the nursing home after visiting my grandma that I don't feel better.
Mm.
It makes me feel better about my who I am. It makes me feel better about
Yeah.
my day. It makes me feel better about the communication relationship I just gave her. That's an act of self care. I don't know. What would you
Yeah.
tell somebody?
Yeah. First, I wanna say, like, I 100% understand this.
Mm,
I woke up in the morning through high school every day with anxiety, and it was so bad. When I was looking at this submission, it really brought me back, and I wanna say it was so bad that, and I wanna make it very clear, I was not suicidal, I had no plans to take my life, but I didn't wanna live. I just
mm,
wanted to be in perfect peace with Jesus,
mm,
but I also wanna share that, like, I have been completely delivered from that, and
mm,
so what I did is I had 2 verses that I would read every morning. It was Proverbs 3, 5 through 6, and Psalm 23, and I would just read them until, and some days I would repeat them over and over in my head all day long.
mm.
Sometimes it was all day. Sometimes it was just the first hour, but I had these scriptures that I would speak over myself. And I also had worship songs that, there were certain worship songs that when I listened to them, I just felt this like peace wash over me. And I would just play those worship songs. And so I think for this person, finding those things that you feel so connected to the Lord, that you feel so much peace, and that doesn't mean that it's going to happen right away, but finding these little grooves of ways that you just feel a stillness and feel your body calming down a little bit, and just leaning into those and take it one day at a time. I think when we think, and we've talked about this
Yeah.
with hope, when
Yeah.
you think, oh, I'm going to be struggling with this for years and years to come, like, it's not helpful. You really do have to take it one day at a time, and just, I really think just like seeking the Lord through it and praying, asking the Lord for peace, asking for him to deliver you from it, because it, I am telling you, it happened in my life. I
Yeah.
asked for peace, and I am living without anxiety.
Jesus plus medication plus therapy can help us live the lives that we deserve. right?
Yeah.
And we are actually called to live. I want to close every episode with a segment I call Day in the Bible. And this is where I share something I have learned in Bible study with you that will beg the question, what if I'm wrong about how I have been reading or thinking or explaining this Bible passage? And today we're going to look at how many times the Bible says, be unafraid. It's actually the most used command in Scripture. Fear not is the most repeated command. And remember that anxiety is just fear.
Mm.
So while I am not saying that we can just say these words and magically be better, I am saying that it seems the Bible anticipates humanity's bent toward fear. It's the most given command because God knows this is something that human beings struggle with and through. Fear and anxiety are normal. You're normal. And my mentor said to me one time that God often tells us to be unafraid. And that doesn't mean that we don't feel fear or anxiety. It means that we are able to push past our fear and anxiety and keep moving forward toward what God is calling us to do anyway. We can feel fear and choose to push forward unafraid. All I want to do to close out today's show is read 15 Bible verses to you. And I am asking you, wherever you are, to slow down, okay? Slow down. If you are able, I invite you to close your eyes and to just let these words respond to whatever fear or anxiety or situation or circumstance you are going through right now that is causing uncertainty and anxiety and fear. Pause the recording and replay these verses several times if you need to. I'm actually going to ask Lauren, our audio engineer, to play some music beneath these verses that may calm your spirit for a moment as we seek the face of God through his word and try to move past fear and be unafraid. Isaiah 41:10. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Psalm 23:4. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Psalm 27:1. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? Psalm 46:1-3. God is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, and the mountains quake with their surging. Psalm 118:6. The Lord is with me. I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? John 14:27. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. For the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Isaiah 41:13. For I am the Lord your God who takes hold of your right hand and says to you, do not fear. I will help you. Hebrews 13:6. So we say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? Deuteronomy 3:22. Do not be afraid of them. The Lord your God himself will fight for you. Luke 12:32. Jesus says, do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. Lamentations 3:57. You came near when I called you, and you said, do not fear. Psalm 56:3-4. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you, in God, whose word I praise. In God I trust and am not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? Haggai 2:5. This is what I covenanted with you when you came out of Egypt, and my spirit remains among you. Do not fear. Luke 12:7. Indeed, the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Don't be afraid. You are worth many more than sparrows. That's it for today's episode. Join us next week as we continue in our theme of mental health.
Next week, we are discussing the topic, What I Learned in Therapy. You can send me your submissions if you want us to discuss whatever experience you are questioning on the podcast. Email me at whatifimwrongpod@gmail.com.
I'm Heather Thompson Day, and I'll see you next week.